And so we'll need to be able to, as you put forward, I'm just saying to save some time, as you put forth the budget, to be able to pay for that, I think it would be important to make sure that all of us are aware, and the citizens, how much of an impact we would have on our tax rate, all things considered, to pay that, because I think that would be fair to make sure everybody knows what we're doing there.
We'll provide.
All right, thank you. Hey, thank you again so very much. I think that was very informative. Some of these things I'm looking at myself. Okay, one moment. One of the things that I've been looking at myself, and I think my friend alluded to it, Mayor Pro Tem, is some of the things we're doing, looking at what's going to happen with the bond rates and where we're going. Councilwoman, you said you had a question now?
I did. This is probably more for staff. So are we looking at any other ways of funding this? Anything that may be more creative, any public-private partnerships or anything else to go toward the funding of the ice arena?
Yes.
Well, we're reaching out to Park and Planning for that reason, but our hopes aren't very high in that respect. They're in their budget process too, and everybody's got limited funding. The only options we have for certain are to either fund it from the fund balance, which would drain the fund balance, possibly, and or borrow the money. And those are our current options right now.
And Councilwoman, I would say to you from our thing is we have been looking to see if we could get additional support, even reaching out to our delegation for that support as well. So I think we have been trying to see if there are other means, and that doesn't mean that there isn't some other creative way that we may come up with, but I think this is a good foundation for us to begin the process and look at it. No other questions? Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.
Have a good evening. And if you could, please find that crystal ball. All right, at this time, we will now move to Pointer Ridge Shopping Center update. Staff will brief council on the status of the upkeep of the shopping center.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
How you doing?
Doing well. Nick Spurgeon, Director for Community Services. I have Jamie Braun here with me this evening. She's the Code Compliance Manager. So we were asked to put together a brief summary on our commercial code compliance enforcement history and strategy with Pointer Ridge Shopping Center. So we have a few slides we'll go through here.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. So as you can see from this slide, under Rappaport management from 2007 to 2021, we had 17 cases, 4 complaints. 5 of those were building permit violations, 8 trash or open storage violations, 3 tall grass violations, 1 noise complaint. There was 1 rodent infestation that was managed by the health department. So since December of 2021, under KKNB management, there's been 11 cases, 7 complaints, 4 building permit violations, 6 trash, open storage, or exterior building maintenance violations, 1 tall grass violation, and there's been 1 upkeep of store interior managed by DPI, 1 parking and fire lane violation by the police department, 1 no trash can complaint in front of the storefront, and then 1 business type use, again, managed by DPI. Moving on, specific to the county history, a little bit more in depth, the 2 cases from under Rappaport management. 1, the rodent infestation I mentioned before, was at the Dollar Tree. They ended up shutting that facility down for a little bit of time to deal with that so they could handle the problem and reopen. Food facility complaint at the Pizza Hut. Since 2021, we've had 2 cases, upkeep of a store interior at the Beijing Cafe, and then a use and occupancy permit issue at the Crane Convenience and Tobacco Store. So we're going to go through a couple series of pictures that just illustrate what it looks like as of February 2024, which was one of the last times our code compliance staff were out there doing inspections. So you can see this is the front of the building. Parking lot is in reasonable shape. You know, there are some cracks and whatnot, but it's in decent shape. Right in front of the Dollar Tree. The Pizza Hut, vacant Pizza Hut building. This is the back side of the shopping center. Again. And then we have existing violations. These pictures right here illustrate those violations. One is a pothole. You can see just to the left of the left side of the screen. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see some open storage trash, and both of those are being handled by code compliance as we speak. And like I said, it's really a brief summary as to where we stand with Pointer Ridge Shopping Center, and we just wanted to bring you this information this evening.
Okay, at this time, I'll turn it over to Councilwoman Enda Mamadu, who had requested that we review this.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council members, as well as wonderful District 4 residents and all of the rest of the City of Bowie residents. I did request for this agenda item to be added to the agenda so that our wonderful Code Compliance Department could brief us on the status of Pointer Ridge Shopping Center. Over the last couple of years, we've received a number of different types of complaints in regards to Pointer Ridge Shopping Center regarding the upkeep of the aesthetics or some grass or paint chipping or, let's say, cracking along the edging of the facility. So I really wanted our Code Compliance Department to just give us a brief kind of summary on where things stand so that we know for all of our awareness on what's going on at Pointer Ridge Shopping Center. Some of the couple of questions that I have that I want to amplify for the rest of my colleagues is, do we know about the status of the complaints that are with DPI, where those lie right now? Are they do you know where they are in the life cycle of that complaint?
Evening. As far as we understand, they have been resolved.
Okay, so these complaints are not technically existing, they've just been resolved. There are previous complaints that have been made within the last year.
Well, the one with the rodent infestation and the Pizza Hut, that was before 2021, and then after 21 was the use and occupancy for the Crane Convenience and Tobacco and the Beijing Cafe. And from what we were told by DPI inspectors, those have been resolved at this point.
Awesome. Can you talk to us a little bit about what's under our jurisdiction as it pertains to code compliance with these retail shopping centers? I think that would be helpful for the public.
Sure. So our responsibility is basic property maintenance to make sure that basically what is required of a homeowner is required of the commercial businesses within the city. So you're talking about peeling, chipping, flaking paint, trash issues, public nuisance violations such as tall grass. The other things like the use and occupancy permits, that's all through the county zoning, DPI issues. So it really is just basic property maintenance violations that, again, it is covered by Chapter 5 of the Bowie City Code, and that is exterior property maintenance. And the only thing that doesn't apply to commercial properties is about open storage. So meaning that they are allowed to have storage items that are meant for sale, not for trash purposes, right? So they are permitted to have that.
Awesome. And are we, in terms of our city procedures, are we regularly kind of assessing these shopping centers, or is it basically once a complaint is submitted to code compliance, then they go out and inspect the property?
We go through them weekly.
Wonderful. And then the last question that I have for you, if you can clarify, so I think oftentimes there is some confusions on our constituent side where DPI has a policy for aesthetics. Can you talk to us a little bit more about your interpretation of what that means when DPI says that they do have a code compliance for aesthetic upkeep of commercial shopping centers? You talked about City of Bowie's responsibility, but what is their responsibility, just so our residents know what's within their domain?
So I can't say specifically, but my understanding is when they're talking about aesthetics, they're talking about how many parking spaces are supposed to be there and how many handicap spots and how the lights are working, the exterior lighting is working, including the parking lot lighting and such. So I think that's what they mean by aesthetics. And then also, it's also the interior of the store, so the exit signs have to work properly, and the signs have to be lit properly. That's a DPI situation. We don't have that authority. If the business is not in business anymore, they have to remove that sign. That's a requirement of DPI as well. So I think that's what they mean when they talk about aesthetics of a business area, especially when you're talking about vacancies and such.
And then, sorry, two last questions. Can you talk about the range of our commercial fines in terms of how much they are?
Sure. So if it's related to trash and it is close to a residential area, the fines start at $500, but the rest of it is the same as it is for residential. So it's $100 for the first offense, $200 for the second offense, $500 for every subsequent offense after that.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We'll add as a point of commentary from my colleagues. Might want to look at increasing that at some point in life, but essentially that's just for consideration. And then the last question I have for you, I've noticed an uptick in storage type boxes or trailers or large trailer vehicles being parked at some of these shopping centers for extended periods of time. Does that violate our code, or is that more DPI, or does it violate anybody's codes?
So it's actually, I believe it's a violation of DPI. So the county code specifies what vehicles can be parked on commercial property. The city is only permitted to regulate what vehicles are parked on residential property. We cannot regulate what vehicles are parked on commercial property. So that is something that, as far as, again, my understanding from DPI inspectors is it is not legal for Amazon to park their vehicles at shopping centers or overnight parking of commercial vehicles that don't have business with that particular shopping center.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. That's the rest of my comments. Thank you for the presentation.
Any other questions from my colleagues? Councilman Steph?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to echo that I'm very open to looking at adjusting the fines for some of the commercial challenges. Also just wanted to raise, I know we've had similar issues to the ones that Councilmember Ndibumadu is bringing up with the Bowie Plaza Shopping Center on 197. I know we'd had some back and forth with the county. If you just guys have a chance this week to update me on that. I know the county inspectors were looking at that at one point. I hadn't heard anything back from the county. I was just kind of curious. I'm also wondering to what extent, this isn't something we're going to solve tonight, but maybe worth having a follow-up conversation, maybe with DPI as a guest of our meeting, to talk a little bit about ways in which we could either work collaboratively or take a look at the existing challenges that we tend to have with a lot of these shopping centers, and just see if there's any low-hanging fruit that we might be missing as far as like enforcement opportunities and how best to communicate those with DPI. I'd also just encourage us to think about how to factor this in future conversations about economic development. I know that Councilmember Ndibumadu has talked to this particular shopping center owner before, and I think we've all at some point or another have been on the phone with some shopping center owners in different parts of the city where we've had some concerns about the quality of their, the aesthetic quality, maybe harder to define, of their centers. But we're going to have to find some sort of carrot and stick way of getting these guys to make good investments. We have some shopping centers in the city that look great, and where the owners put in real money and do good landscaping and it looks nice and they pick up the trash. We have some others where we seem to have some perennial challenges, and we're just going to have to put our heads together and think about some carrot and stick approaches to this, because if we come out with sticks, in my experience, that doesn't tend to encourage them to make better choices in the long term, other than just dealing with the problems that we raise. Thank you.
Any other questions for Councilmember? Councilmember Brady, then I'll go back to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to follow up on the question about aesthetics and what have you. When talking about aesthetics, you quite often think of what it looks like visually. Is it appealing? Is it pleasing? But when it comes to code, it's a little more exacting, if I understand it. But the question I really want to go at is, does the issue of aesthetics deal with things like the condition of the parking field, whether the stripes on the designating the parking spots, you can't see them anymore? Does that fall under the aesthetics, or does that fall under something like site plan approval?
I imagine, I'm not sure, but I imagine that would probably come under site plan approval and a DPI enforcement. I did forget a couple of things here. There are the storage outside of these, the dollar store and some other stores, Big Lots, they like to have their displays outside. That is permitted by the county zoning ordinance. They are permitted to have those things within 6 feet of the building and such. And I know that the new zoning ordinance also allows for the sandwich board signs now that never used to be allowed prior to that zoning ordinance coming into effect. So the sandwich board signs that, people will have advertisements on, or chalkboard things on there, those are now permitted to be put out front of the stores as well. So things that may not have been historically permitted are now permitted because times have changed and the zoning ordinance has changed over the years.
Okay, I appreciate that. With respect to the overnight parking of large vehicles, you said that if they're associated with the store, they can possibly be there, but otherwise they're in violation. So that, as an example, and I don't mean to cite this to detract from the merchant, but Walmart, quite often I'll see a Walmart tractor trailer rig parking there, and I would assume on your definition that would be permissible. But if it's an overnight, you name the overnight hauler, if they're in their park, that's illegal? Am I interpreting that right?
That is my understanding. I am not an expert on the county zoning ordinance. I apologize for not having that information for you, but it is my understanding that if it is in connection with business that is being done on the property, even if it is a Walmart who has their driver parking overnight, they're permitted to have them. Now, for longer periods of time, if it lasts for more than X number of hours or days, I don't know about that individually, but yeah.
On the one side, it seems good that they're allowing the vehicle associated with the tenant to be there, but from an outside observer, they can't distinguish between the two, so they see a violation all the time. So it's just kind of confusing. It's legally permissible, but it's confusing to the public. And I know for the longest time, I haven't seen them in a while, but for the longest time, there was a tractor trailer that would sit on the northeast side of Mitchellville Road at Pillar Lane for overnight parking. It hasn't been there for a couple of years, but for a long time, every couple of weeks or a month or two, he'd show up and park overnight. And when I was on the council, we complained, and at least it looks like he may have moved on with what he was doing. My last question, are all shopping centers in the city of Bowie covered by an approved site plan? Because I believe I thought Point Ridge Plaza was not, because there was an issue when I was on the council previously about things that went on there, and the answer we get back was, well, there's no site plan approved, so the rules don't apply to it. So am I mistaken by that?
I don't have the 100% answer on that. Okay. I know that some of the old shopping centers do not have site plans, detailed site plans. So they go under the rule of what was permitted at the time. Right. And if the county has added any restrictions onto that. But I will say, because of the zoning ordinance amendment, a lot of things have changed. For instance, Walmart used to have a CSC, which was a commercial shopping center designation. It now does not. It has something called CG, I think is what it's called. And essentially what they are operating out of that location is not permitted by the zoning ordinance. But, you know, of course, I'm sure it was grandfathered in, and I'm sure they have some restrictions. I don't know specifically, but, you know, we just went over with the planning director about, you know, the zoning, and because of the zoning changes, a lot of things have come up that are, you know, different from what they used to be years ago.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions? Councilmember Mamadi?
It was just, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The last thing is just a request to echo Councilmember Stev to invite DPI to a future council hearing so that we can have a collaborative discussion. I think I see where the confusion is coming from on the resident side. If you do go to DPI's public facing website, it does state Prince George's County Property Maintenance Code requires commercial and industrial property owners to maintain and keep their properties free of trash, litter, and debris, including building exteriors and parking areas like businesses shown above. The county code applies to all areas of Prince George's County with the exceptions of properties located within the municipal boundaries of the city of Bowie and Hyattsville. Contact the city office if there are concerns in either municipality. And so I think that's possibly what's causing the confusion on the resident side, where they're thinking, you know, I call the county, but the county's clearly telling them to call the city of Bowie, and if you're within the city of Bowie, then just call us. So maybe we might want to kind of delineate why they're saying that and probably help provide some clarity. Thank you.
Having said that, I know it's a little longer than anticipated, but as I was talking about a little earlier, there is a stepped-up enforcement blitz by DPI that is being initiated by the county. Now, what I'd like to do is just read really quick some of the things that they're addressing. The reality is, it's for them to address them, though, DPI. We have to let them know, the community has to let them know that there is a problem. So it's about getting everyone to voice out, bring to the city itself any of the issues they see, so that we enter DPI so that they can be addressed. And really quickly, you know, some businesses, they say they will be able to bring up to code compliance, work with, and others, they are simply going to shut down because they're illegal. And just to read this list really quickly, for those who are listening and watching, and for the council members, I think it's important we encourage all of our citizens to participate and provide that information. And those that can be brought up to code are unpermitted residential hair salons, barbershops, or nail salons, food trucks vending on side of public roads, tax preparation business in your home, unlicensed room and boarding house rentals, unlicensed day or elder care, and operating a store from your home. Those things that they will be looking at shutting down because they consider them illegal to operate, and that's running a restaurant or any type of eatery or selling food from your home, garage, or yard, operating a home car repair business or vehicle paint booth, selling items from the center of intersections or from the trunks of vehicles, using your home to house goods for resale, operating pay-to-attend parties or selling alcohol from your premises, converting a single-family home into a more than one family dwelling unit, and allowing sheds to be used as living quarters. I just read through those to make sure that our community understands, for DPI to do that enforcement, for us to get that support in the city, and to help those businesses that are not in compliance get in compliance and be able to be functioning legal businesses. We need to identify those, and they need to be able to understand that DPI will be providing them assistance in coming into compliance. But those that are illegal need to be identified, and people need to understand that DPI will now be putting a blitz to shut them down. So I just thought that important, and Mr. City Manager, we may be getting more reports of some of these things that may be in the city. I know a lot of this falls to DPI, but hopefully we can get the information to pass on to DPI so that they can address it in our city as well. All right, again, thank you so very much. Appreciate you. All right, next up is the Memorial Day Parade plans for 2024. City staff will brief council on plans for the city's 2024 Memorial Day Parade, and this is eligible for action, and I believe we'll be able to take care of this tonight.
Yes.
That's a personal.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe this was first brought up about a week ago via email to City Council. What we're looking at is two different options here. We're going to go through a quick little slide that shows a map and the locations of the two different options. Over at Marketplace, we're anticipating that the storage facility that we've long talked about will go under construction starting in April. That is going to be on the backside of the Bowie Marketplace Shopping Center and will have an impact on how the parade operates. That section of the parking lot is usually the dispersal area after the end of the parade. So we'll go ahead and go through a couple different options here. So, parade overview. The parade will be held on Saturday, May 25th at 11 a.m. to honor those who lost their lives while serving our country. More than 60 groups participate annually. The previous parade route extended from Bowie High School Annex to the Sussex Lane, then continued to Stony Brook, and the review stand was at Acorn Hill Park. The route covers approximately 1 mile, and staging occurred at the Bowie High School Annex, and dispersal was behind the shopping center, just as I mentioned, behind Bowie Marketplace. Challenges. As a result of the construction of the self-storage units, the back entrance of the Marketplace Shopping Center at Sage will be closed to traffic. This area has traditionally been used as the dispersing area for large groups, floats, as well as accommodating larger vehicles. Staff is proposing two options. Option one is Walmart to Bowie Town Center. This route, the parade will extend from the Walmart parking lot to Excalibur Road, cross Mitchellville Road to Fred Robinson Way, and conclude at the review stand in front of Bowie City Hall at Mitchellville Road and Evergreen Parkway. Staging would occur at Walmart parking lot for staff and participants to assemble. After judging, participants will proceed to Evergreen Parkway to Bowie Town Center Way and break down in the parking lot behind Party HQ. Impact, the route is about 1.1 miles, 1.15. The entire route is flat. Impacted residents will be notified of route change via mail. We anticipate minimal impact as the community already hosts several parades along this route, one of them being Bowie State. The event may increase foot traffic for Bowie Town Center stores and restaurants. Option two is Bowie High School Annex to Stony Brook Drive. The parade will extend from Bowie High School Annex to Sussex Lane and will conclude at the review stand at the corner of Sussex Lane and Stony Brook. That's right where the PNC Bank is. Staging would occur at the Bowie Annex lot for staff and participants to assemble. After judging, participants would proceed to Stony Brook Drive and break down on the street. So in this particular option, we would be closing down Stony Brook Drive for about a quarter of a mile to allow for the dispersal. The route is approximately 3/4 of a mile long. Residents would be able to enter from the west side of Stony Brook Drive, turn right to exit while allowing parade participants to break down and safely disperse. This option will result in a shorter parade route and a greater bottleneck at Stony Brook Lane and require additional staff and police to ensure safety. The Marketplace will not permit the city to utilize the main parking area due to the impact on customer parking. Staff recommends we utilize parade route option one from Walmart to Bowie Town Center this year. The proposed route is used for parades, Bowie High School and Bowie State University. It offers the most convenient route for viewers and staff. The new route provides ample space and a safe environment for staging, breakdown, and dispersal. It is a flat route with no hills, alleviating concerns for parade participants. There are a few major intersections to be covered by the Bowie Police Department. There is ample parking available at both ends of the parade route, and both Walmart and Bowie Town Center are supportive of partnering with the city of Bowie for this event. That's what I got.
Okay, hey, thank you for that, and thank you for having the foresight of looking at what we may have encountered had we stayed with the same route and the challenges we were faced. I like the proposals from you, but at this point, I will ask if any of my colleagues have any questions. Go ahead, Councilwoman Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate it. So I actually participated in the parade last year, and let me tell you what makes it different for me between there and then going down Excalibur is the sense of community, because you're going past homes where people live in the Bowie community. And going down Excalibur, I mean, it's a fast road, and it's not like you have the little houses sitting there and people are sitting in their front yard or on their porch or just on the sidewalk. So in my mind, it's a matter of, where you start and where you end. And maybe you end where you start and you just kind of change the route a little bit. But I just really like that sense of community that happens when you go in. And I understand the concern about the construction, but when I say end where you start is maybe you end at the high school rather than behind the shopping center. Now, I haven't mapped it out, and I'm sitting here at 10:20, and I may not even make any sense, but I just like the sense of community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any other, Councilman Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess just a couple quick points. I think the major downside to changing starting points completely is that you have a huge array of different groups that are really used to starting at the annex, and I think it's going to throw people for a loop in kind of a big way. I'm wondering, to Councilmember Rogers' point, if there isn't a universe where we can't keep the annex at the starting point, but just change the end point to something that's roughly within the same distance. Just looking at the map, you could go down Bel Air Drive, heading south, turn west onto Tulip Grove, and end like a Tulip Grove Elementary. It's about the same length of route. You still got the neighborhood feel. You still got the same starting point. If you don't like that, you can go further down and end at like Bel Air Bath and Tennis. They've got a large parking lot. You could end at Bel Air Mansion. My point simply being that you can keep the parade in an area where the actual attendees, who've been in some cases doing this for 15, 20 years, maintain the setups that they're familiar with. You minimize the disruption to them. You don't discourage participation by changing starting points completely, but you simply adjust the route a little bit, keeping it mostly to residential roads. I'm wondering if staff has any thoughts on that.
So staff did look at multiple options. I believe the two options that were presented this evening are the best two options that staff can put forth, that we have span of control. We don't own the swim center's parking lot. The mansion doesn't have enough parking to accommodate dispersal. All good ideas, just there's challenges with each of those. And staff spent quite a bit of time looking at the various options. There's no perfect solution here. The two options that were presented this evening, staff can do. We made a recommendation on one of them, but staff absolutely can achieve a successful event with either one of them.
Understood. And for participants as well, there's a lot of muscle memory with this. I mean, every time we move a voting location or change the starting point of like a marathon, like half the people go to the original spot.
Sure.
And so I think it's just there's just something I'm trying to figure out. Has staff looked at or talked specifically to anyone at Tulip Grove to see if that might be an option?
No, we have not talked to the elementary school, no.
Would staff be willing to reach out and see if they
Sure.
can have that conversation? Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Councilman Brady?
Thank you. Mayor Adams, this is being driven by the construction occurring on Marketplace, correct?
That's correct.
Is this going to be, in all expectation, limited to this year's parade? Or are we looking to the future where, regardless of the construction, they're not going to let us use the property?
It's too early to say. I can tell you that Bowie Marketplace has not been interested in us using the front part of their parking lot because it will
Understand.
impact customers. The backside traditionally hasn't been a problem because there hasn't been a whole lot of customer base back there. You have Cheney Tire, and I believe that's it. Now with another commercial entity back there, I suspect that they would adopt their same philosophy and not want to impact the customer base back there.
And what's the new entity in the back?
It's a storage facility.
And the storage doesn't have a lot of foot traffic. It's not like the front of the shopping center. So I think it would be kind of what we've seen all along. And the reason I asked this question and go down this route is Councilman Steve made the comment about memory, people remembering it. People are used to it. We've been doing this 20, 25 years now, starting at the annex and finishing up at Acorn Hill Park. So that if we are looking to relocate permanently, that's a different issue. But if it's just 1 year, I'm wondering if we couldn't just shorten the route and basically cordon off there by Park and Planning, the community center, have that as the end area. We'd be blocking off that section of the road anyways. And let me finish. And relocate the parade review stand from Acorn Hill Park to Sussex Lane. And just basically go down, and when you make the turn, that's the end of the parade, and everyone can start deparking there.
That's the option 2 that was provided.
That's what?
That's option 2 that was provided in the slide.
I thought option 2 went to,
It's right at the corner where PNC and the community center.
I misread that.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm fully
You're,
in
it's a
favor of
great
option
idea,
2.
sir.
No, I heard something else was thrown out when you were describing it, so you got me off course. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Thank you.
Okay. Then I'm supportive of option 2.
Understood. Any other comments? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I too would want to strongly step in on the option 2. I think the notion that it is feels like community, and there is the tradition of the event, and I think that that's something that makes the community part of what it is today and keeps it going. Certainly, we'll have to figure out what the future holds, post construction and the like. But I do appreciate the alternative, presenting an alternative. But I do really think that this belongs in the community, kind of where it started and where I think it should continue. I think there also is another issue too, which is it's a lot easier to communicate to guests and to participants that it's going to be same place, same time, shorter, as opposed to different place, different time, location with which people aren't familiar, and particularly in a circumstance when we don't have it as a permanent change. So I'm very much in favor of keeping it where we have it now. So thank you.
I think so far we've got at least 4 people for number 2, correct?
That's where we are. I just want to give everybody their chance to comment. Any other comments? I think I will
After consensus.
ask for a consensus on those who feel number 2 is optimal.
Yes.
Councilwoman? So, it's unanimous. And we took care of that tonight. All right. But thank you for the other option as well. The one thing we do need to keep in mind that was brought up is that we will need additional police support on doing this. So that will be a challenge for us, and we'll need to make sure that we do what we need to support that, okay? All right, thank you, Donna. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next item. Bowie strategic plan discussion. Council will discuss the scheduling and format for the city's strategic plan. Councilwoman, I know you had talked about doing, but I'd like to kind of start off with council and give you an idea of where I was initially going with this. Hey, good night. I may have talked to several of you before about my thought on how to proceed with the council. I really wanted us to have an opportunity to get together, to get to know each other. And so I was looking at basically an opportunity for us to do that and then go into a strategic planning session. My initial thought was for us to get on a bus all together, and that the major council members from each of their district, we take a short tour through the city and have them talk about to us as we're on the bus and take a look what they believe and their feelings on what the major issues are in their communities, within their districts. And for those of us broadly, being able to talk about that too. It gives us a chance to really hear from the council members on what they think, what's mattering to them, what they think the issues are, that we can all hear those. And then after doing that and having an opportunity to spend the morning taking that tour and being together and just discussing what the issues are that we see within the city, then coming back and then doing basically a strategic planning session. And that way we will have talked about seeing what everybody's looking at and then be able to sit and talk and maybe even at that time look at getting someone to help facilitate. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, I don't want to rain on anybody's parade, but there are open meetings act considerations with a discussion of those sorts of things in a closed environment to which the public has no access.
So what would we need to do to be able to do it?
I'm sort of thinking outside the box here, but if you wanted to take a bus tour like that, I suppose you could set up a Zoom or Teams kind of connection so the public could listen and observe.
Okay, now if we were to go upstairs and say we were having a strategic planning session, would that be a part of the open meetings as well, correct?
It would.
If we were to simply do a team building,
That you can do.
so I can get on the bus and do a team building
Yes.
with everyone and address whatever we need to. And that would be the team building in the morning, and then we could come back for strategic planning in the afternoon. Yes, feel
Thank you,
free.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman, go ahead.
Thank you very much. So I started down this road of strategic planning probably back in the late 80s, where the person that I worked for actually was he attended the Citadel, so it was very much into military strategy. So we started strategic planning long before the federal government even started thinking about it. But what I hear is two things, really. One is, yes, we do need to have a retreat for the council to do some team building and get us more aligned and focused. That's number one. So that's a separate thing. I'm going to put that over on this side. When we talk about strategic planning, there has to be a component that allows the residents, the citizens, to engage. And that can be a public facilitated opportunity where they're invited to maybe Ken Hill or the South Bowie Community Center or other places where there's an opportunity for them to sit down through a facilitated discussion and talk about what their vision is for the city of Bowie. But what I was thinking more for us is, obviously, we know that strategic planning is an ongoing process. It doesn't happen once. It's a continuous process. We also know that it creates a map, a roadmap with a vision and a strategy to achieve that vision that should impact not only the council, but the city staff, the city committees, and the residents of Bowie. And so that's where it becomes extremely important that we engage all stakeholders in the appropriate manner in order to get that input toward the strategic plan. We have to be more, forward-focused. We have to make sure that we're aligned. We also have to make sure that our decision-making, I made some notes. We have to make sure our decision-making is objective, because obviously decisions come with a certain amount of inherent bias. So we have to make sure that we can back up things with data and projections. We have to keep this as objective and as data-driven as we possibly can, so that we can have a strong strategy to move the city forward. And that, not only that, then we're going to have to, through this facilitated process, we're going to have metrics to be able to go back and track not only what we've agreed to, but those things that go down to the staff level, city manager, staff, and to the committees, so that they're able to report up, so that when we have our reports out for the committees, they all align to what we've talked about in our strategic plan. So, I recommend the five-year process. I recommend the opportunity, because it's going to take a while. It's going to take more than a day or two. It's going to take a while. The opportunity, I like your caravan riding through the community and actually engaging with people. I like that, but I understand also we have rules that we have to follow. But we still need to do something like that in order to engage the residents in the community. So that's kind of what my thoughts were around this.
And what I would tell you is that we would look to engage the community in doing that, because a strategic plan is one that keeps you focused. And I think you're right. We need to, but what I envision is us getting together, coming up with our general strategic plan, do as we've done in the past, and then go out with that strategic plan and have a town hall, a meeting in each district, and present to them. And we got great feedback when we did that before. And each district representative, and us as well, would go there. And we would present what we think or where we want to go. I think we need to start that and have a framework of some of the things we're looking at. And you're right, then give all of the community a chance and go to each district and have that town hall and let them give us their feedback on that. And then we revise and look at that strategic plan again. I would strongly recommend that, again, we do have it discussed finally, where we come up with something with the assistance of staff, of putting together that strategic plan that we've heard, that we've started, that we get the input from each district when we have the town hall, and do that. And yeah, it's going to take time, and it's going to be a living document. But the good part about that is strategically, as you talk about a 5-year plan, that's a good, do a 5, do a 7, whatever we see, but be able to keep the city on track. And I think that's a great idea. And I think that's how we should move forward with it. Now, I have asked our city clerk to try and reach out to find dates. I gave her a couple, and she's going to be, if she hasn't already, reach out to you to see if those are good dates. And I would really ask that, I know it's a sacrifice, but I think it's one that if you truly can, unless it's something that you truly can't do, that we do that on those Saturdays, that we put in that time. I know it's a lot, but I think it can serve us as well as the community so well if we can do that. So I ask as Wilder gets the dates out, and I don't know if we've had any feedback, not yet, but we look at doing that and we take that time and we do that. And that doesn't mean we can't change the process of what we do, but I think this is a good way for us to start together and to be able to start looking at a plan and getting those ideas, like they say, on paper of what we want to see. And I think you make a good point about data-driven. Well, the part of that is we can come with the ideas in the field, but we're going to need staff to get us the data and gather that. So I think that's a good idea, and I think we could move that way. Mayor Pro Tem, I really would like your thoughts on that.
Well, I think one of the things we need to focus on is some process around this, and I think this may be a bit of what was missing in some of the past efforts. We didn't have a agreed upon process, something that was structured for laying out a strategic plan in terms of keeping it simple with a maybe teamwork. I had team building at Moxnix for me. I don't know. I guess I'm not into big group hugs quite as much. I don't know. But I do think that there is. I do think we need to kind of figure out a process so that we end up with something that is actually tangible and that's workable and that actually has some operational value. Because I do think we spend a lot of time, just talking without a lot of structure. We're not going to end up with anything that we can live with, that we can point to and have direction on. So I do think that we ought to at least consider some opportunities for that. I look to my to colleagues. I don't know if we need somebody to come in and do some
Absolutely.
doing some leadership on it for us. Facilitator, excuse me, not. They don't want to be called leaders. They want to just be facilitators, and get a facilitator in, not so much for the content, but just for some structure. And I'm not sure if there's something that we could have as a target for what it looks like. What does good look like? What does success look like? I think we ought to have that in mind before we get too far afield on this.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman.
Thank you very much. The other thing I want to mention is that your strategic plan should also drive your budget decision-making. And I'll get back to the process. There has to be a clearly defined process with a facilitator to make sure that this happens and that it's executed on. But before we can even get to that point, we have to have the commitment of the council that this is something that we're going to do and we're going to commit. It's just like the mayor mentioned, a Saturday or a few Saturdays.
Yes.
Where we sit down and we talk through this thing, because it helps us in the long run. We'll all start talking the same message. Everybody will be pointed in the same direction. You won't have a lot of variances in your budgets because you've already talked about the direction you want to go into. And it also helps with innovation, because as you sit down and you look at things and you start discussing them, you might bring in some experts, and it gets you thinking differently about how the future may look. So putting that, structure box around that is going to be very important. So thank you, sir.
And I would add one last thing. Oh, go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you, Mayor Adam. First off, I think we need to split the two issues. Any organization, especially once it's newly formed, does need to do some team building and what have you. And I think that goes without saying, not to say that we need it, but it's always beneficial and helpful. And I think we ought to go down that as one path to improve our relationship, to improve our understandings of one another, where we're going, what have you, on a personal level. But I think that's separate and independent of the issue about strategic planning, because strategic planning really deals with the city. The city as a whole, the city government, the budget, the amenities, the people who live here. So I think we should look at that separately and concentrate. Now, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, is because many groups have done this. I think this would, if memory serves me, this would be the third one I've sat through as a council member. I know when I was on MML, we did a strategic plan for MML. It was a little more focused, more concentrated, so we didn't have to do it. But one of the key things, I think, and it's nice when you're talking about going to the different districts. But my concern there is one district's going to be focused on what they need alone. But and sometimes they won't tie together and come together. But what I think you need to do is hire a professional to run it, to help staff organize it, have staff do much of the labor, but then break down into different focus groups. And the ones that immediately come to mind are recreational groups. Have them come in and have a focus and have input on the strategic plan. Faith-based groups in the city and churches, seniors, and believe me, seniors will tell you what they think the future ought to be. Businesses, because what we do as a government, what we do as the citizens has an impact on government. Our youth, our city committees, all of these would be separate focus groups that pull together by the facilitator to start pulling stuff together. And it would be an iterative process. It's not like we're going to sit here and say, hire a facilitator, staff go do it, come back and bring us the final product. We will be involved in the evolution of the final thing. And you had commented about going to the different districts. I would welcome that idea. And I'll share this with you, and it lasted 1 year. About 15 years ago, I suggested we ought to get out of this building. We ought to, in quarter one, go to District 1. Quarter 2, go to District 2. Get away from the cameras, get away from the stuffy, stale air of City Hall. And it lasted 1 year. That wasn't supposed to be funny. And I would welcome, I think we got to do that just as a course of our actions throughout the year, have it. So I think, and that is separate and independent of, as I said, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. And I would suggest we also, just for our own information, we ought to ask staff to dust off the past strategic plans and provide us with copies as we can see what was done before. So those are my thoughts on doing this. I think we need to move forward. I think it's necessary, as Councilwoman Rogers said, that it'll have a great impact on where we go with our budgets, and I think that'd be a helpful tool. So that's where I'm coming from, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think we're kind of the same thing when we get there. I think that when I talk about that strategic session in the afternoon, evening that we do have someone there, a facilitator, to actually make sure we do it. But I think it will be good for us to start with a general framework that we're doing. Now, I think you make a very good point, Councilman, that if we have that old strategic plan that we can pull out, that'll give us a look at what the thoughts were, and because I'd really like to even get an assessment of how we stuck. When I say we, I mean the community. How we stuck to it and look at it, because that also gives you a guideline and a reminder of what you're doing. So I think that's a good idea, and I would ask that again. Everybody make as hard an effort as possible from a council. I know y'all have a lot of things on weekend, and it may require you to try and change, strip, or do things. But I would like to see us all be able to come together on the dates and do that. Councilwoman Ndimamadu.
I think one quick comment that I'll make after just listening and observing the discussion is, while I agree that sometimes districts may advocate for different things on the needs of their constituency, I think this opportunity presents a even greater opportunity for us to tie all the threads together. I think in the city of Bowie, you'll find the overarching theme where every family, pretty much for the most part, wants the same thing. They all desire the same basic necessities and qualities of life. And while every makeup of every district may look a little different, some may be more busier from an economic development perspective, some may be more busier for small businesses, some may be more busier for arts and humanities. Every district will have their different feel. I think it presents the opportunity for us to tie together that overarching theme so that we can create a more holistically designed society for our constituents to enjoy. Like, I'm sure there are so many families in District 4 that would love to go to District 1 and go to Old Town Bowie and hang out and walk around with their kids, because we don't have that in District 4. Like, that's just not the makeup of our community in certain pockets of our district. And so I think I would just urge my colleagues to think about the opportunity that it's going to present to us to really tie everything together and weave it all together for us to create a more holistically, intentionally urban designed city. Thank you.
Very well put, and I will just try and close this gap with a couple of comments so we can move on. And that is, as we have 4 representatives of the 4 districts, and it is their job to advocate for their constituency. And so that is going to be done. But we also have 3 members who are overarching the entire city to help make sure that and that's why I say what you said, that tie it all together. So we get to see it, but we help to bring it all together and make sure that it's fair and it's something that's meaningful for all of us. So having said that, I really look forward to this. I really look forward to what we can do for the city and what we can do for us as a council to provide the leadership that we need to do. So with that said, I think we've given a couple of action items to you for us, staff, and let me just sum that up real quick. And that is, we're going to get the dates out that we can agree on that we can meet. We're going to need the transportation, the city bus that's accessible so we can have something to ride in and do those things. We're going to need a facilitator and a space for the afternoon session to be able to get together and do it. And we'd like to see if you have access to the last strategic plan so that we can dust that off and hopefully get it to us ahead of time so we'll have some great late night reading. So I think, did I miss anything, anyone? I think that's the general start. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, you mentioned about the former strategic plan. I'll make sure to get that off to all the council so you can see it. It does have a lot of cobwebs on it, so dusting it off may not be everything you imagined.
And I would like to say, if there's anything about, for example, a horse and buggy or a carriage, please feel free to delete it. Put a red line through it so we don't need to go through that.
From this discussion tonight, I think I have a proposal for you all. So for the past few years, your senior staff has been working with some facilitators talking about a lot of issues internal in regards to our service delivery, how we provide services to the constituents, and have a group that has gotten some familiarity with the city and its operations. If we are looking to have a facilitated session, we also need to keep in mind that our facilitators need to be available as well. And we may want to be picking our facilitators to make sure they're matching our needs, rather than picking a calendar date and seeing what facilitator is available for that date.
I just feel very strongly that you can make it happen.
I can't make folks that are not available, but I do understand your point with that. What we may want to do is I could ask the group that we've been working with to take a listen to this conversation that we had this evening in terms of what the council is looking for. Ask them to maybe work up a little bit of a proposal in terms of how they may see working with the council and stepping forward, and then we can identify, maybe we can bring them to have a conversation with the council as a whole to make sure that we're embarking on the right path. So we are equipping our facilitators with the right direction in terms of what
Understood.
they're looking at, and they can have a proposal for all of us to sort of respond to, and we can work from there.
Right. Mr. Mears, I would ask, on 1 second, I would like to ask council, I think it would be good to also have staff in that strategic planning session as reference. So I want to make sure that we make that clear that we will be expecting staff to be there as well for strategic planning. Okay?
And you're,
I know we all kind of assume that, but I want to make sure as an action that, because then that becomes about your calendar as well.
this definition of staff, is this a couple of staff, or is this the broader senior management team?
I think we can do with just senior staff. Yeah.
Couple.
Because there may be questions and information that you can readily present to us, okay? I think that I would also say to council, to assist staff, if you know of competent facilitators, please provide them to staff so that they can vet them and look at them, but also give them a bigger pool if you know of some. I think that would be helpful as well. Again, because I know Daniel's gonna make them come in on the dates we want them to be there. All right, are we all in agreement on that? All right, so at this time, I would open the floor for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn to closed session under the statutory authority of the Maryland Annotated Code, General Provisions, Article 3-305B1, to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, and any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, please respond with an aye. Aye. Unanimous decision. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to all the citizens. We appreciate your support and your work, and have a good evening.
All the citizens.